Soap, shampoo, and conditioner. Welcome back to Sound the Siren. I'm Xavier.
I'm Dylan. Welcome back to another episode. Today is part two out of three for the AFL team reviews. So the teams we'll have a look at is Geelong, Gold Coast, GWS, Hawthorn, Melbourne, and Port Adelaide. So we skip North Melbourne. You'll see why next episode. Maybe a special guest or something along the lines of. Anything to say, Zave?
Nothing from me. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. You want to kick us off?
All right. So Geelong is the first team. My pros is I think Dangerfield's been really good. Hawkins has also been very, very good this year. Probably career best form in his early 30s. So that's pretty good for them for him. And also they've managed to get wins with Selwood and Ablett being out. So that's good as well. Also, the second tier of midfielders at Geelong has been very incredible this year. Menegola, Guthrie, and Duncan in particular have stepped it up and have helped contribute to their winning.
Just before you move forward, I'll cut you off there. This is just an improvised question, but do you think with the Coleman, it's a bit, not ridiculous, but a bit astounding that it's only 40 goals in about 17 games for the Coleman? Do you think the scoring in the games is somewhat hard to watch in a way?
I don't really think so. I've spoken on this a little bit before. Obviously, it's great to see players kick 100 goals, and it is one of my dreams to run onto the field when someone kicks 100 goals. And if someone ever gets close, I will be at that game and trying to be the first one to touch them. But yeah, I think people have developed game plans and things over the years to try and win football, and I think that is ultimately what's most important. I don't think really if people think people have started to change the way they think over the last few years, and they've thought more about less about scoring and more about stopping the other team from scoring. And ultimately, the game is who can score the most, not. Ultimately, the game is who scores more, not who scores the most. So if they can win games without kicking that many goals, I think it's just as impressive. And I think more people are starting to kick goals. I mean, earlier probably in our parents' lifetimes, people would just clear out the 50 and it'd be one-on-ones all day. But today it's more about defending with the ball, and more people kick goals, and it's not all the one person. But I don't really think it's that big of a deal. But it's still impressive whoever wins the Common.
While we're on it, what about the quarter length?
I don't really see why it should be 16 minutes. I think 20-minute quarters really benefit people that have a strong fitness base. I look at people like Tom Scully and Isaac Smith, and I think for their ability to stay out there for 98% of game time as a midfielder, it's incredible. And I think it's an advantage for them to have 20-minute quarters. But I mean, if we're cramming in games like we are this year, I don't really see why 16 minutes would be an issue. But if we ever get back to normal, I don't see why we shouldn't change it back to 20 minutes.
We've gone a bit off track. I was going to ask you something else, but I'll just get to the Geelong positives. I think the recovery after the loss of Tim Kelly, an extraordinary departure, but they haven't really missed a beat. They picked off Brisbane, Port Adelaide, St Kilda, and they're roaring home to a top four finish, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were the future premiers. Hawkins, as you said, career best form, and revelations such as Menegola, Grind Miners have only enhanced their form as a whole.
Yeah, my negative for them is just last night, I think it was, they dropped the game to Richmond, and I think that was a crucial game, a big test for them, and it would have cemented their spot in the top four, but now it's a bit more up in the air. But I'm really just nitpicking. I think they've had a really good year and should be very proud of it. My grade for them is a B+.
Yeah, my negatives, just injuries really. The only concern, the skipper didn't play last night against Richmond. My overall grade for the Cats has to be an A. I think immaculate form, and expect them to be there deep in October. Maybe a bit lenient. I'll change it to an A-. I'll change it to an A-.
My target for them is a top four finish, obviously, and to get some young talent to keep their sustained success. And Jeremy Cameron, I think he's had a pretty poor year at GWS and might be looking to get out. He's a local boy. He's from Geelong, likes his surfing and likes his fishing, so he may want to return home. And I think they should go hard after him, as they have in previous years,
Yeah.
or reportedly.
The Gold Coast Suns is the next team, and I think there's only two words for the positives: the youth. Matt Rowell, Rankin, Noah Anderson, Lockie Weller, Hugh Greenwood, Benny King, Josh Corbett. I'll stop there because I think I could name more, but for the listener's sake, I'll stop. They've pulled out some impressive wins, such as West Coast in round two, and I think they'll continue with their future.
Yeah, my pros for them is their youth as well. Rao's first half of the season, Rankin, Anderson, Lukosius, who I think is one of the best players, or one of my favourite players in the league, and is criminally underrated. One of the best ball users. I think he's third in the league for metres gained. He's like 195 centimetres, can run, can play forward. They've been playing him off a half-back flank this year, and he's done incredibly well. Ben King as well is also very good. And Sam Collins has had a breakout year and is almost an All-Australian. Still got Wiedering in front of him, but he's very close. But I look at their young talent, and they've got like special talent. There's a lot of teams out there that have lots and lots of young players, but they're not particularly talented. But I look at Matt Rowell, Rankin, King, and Lukosius in particular, and I think those four players could be absolutely anything. I think each one of them could be the best player in the league, and they've got stacks and stacks of potential, which is the best thing for them.
The negatives for the Suns is really only Matt Rowell's injury. Not much else, honestly. They lost close games against Melbourne and the Dogs, but they're improving week by week. So my overall grade will be a B minus. Great future signs for them, and they could make finals next year with Rowell back.
Yeah, my negatives is obviously Raoul's injury, and they've still struggled to put wins on the board. I mean, they've been better than people expected, but they're not quite up there yet, which can be expected, obviously, with their young list. My grade for them is a B, and my target for them, hit the draft again and keep building their young talent that they've already got lots of. If they get another good pick this year and they pick up another one to add to those four that I was saying before, it'd be incredible for them, and they'll have a great core going into the future.
I watched a video last week, and it was about where it all went wrong for the Suns and Gary Ablett's shoulder injury against Collingwood. Since that moment, they lost insane midfielders, really. They lost Dion Prestia, to name one off the top of my head. I'm struggling to think, but if they managed to keep all them, I think they'd already be in finals. So
yeah, I think the biggest issue for them is they've struggled to keep people. Like even Ablett has gone home. Every captain that they've had, Ablett, Lynch, Stephen May, they've all left.
Saad.
Saad has left. Caddy, Prestia, Tom. Yeah. I already said Tom Lynch, but if they can build a really strong culture around their club and retain some of the players, in particular the four that I said, they'll be good no matter what going into the future.
The next team is the GWS Giants. So the positives for them, in the first half of the season, they were hardest team to stop inside their 50. Nick Haynes has been colossal, and it's certain, I think he's certain to be the best and fairest so far this year. Are we in agreement with that?
Yeah, he's one of my favourite players, Nick Haynes. He's also my pro for them.
Harry Perryman as well.
Yeah, Perryman had a very good first half of the year. I think he's dropped off a little bit, but Nick Haynes, he's a star. He's going to be an All-Australian. He reads the flight of the ball better than anyone else, maybe bar Jeremy McGovern.
Yeah, McGovern.
But yeah, he's a star. There's actually an interesting stat I tell my father all the time. I think he gets a little bit annoyed, but GWS has never had a multiple-time best and fairest winner in their career, in the history of their club. So if Nick Haynes wins their best and fairest this year, that'll continue. I know they've had one for Toby Green, Jeremy Cameron, Shaw, Mumford. I think Callum Ward's won one. Josh Kelly, Canelio, Whitfield, I think. But they've never had someone win it twice. So I think that's pretty out there and pretty weird, pretty wacky, but it's interesting and probably will continue this year. My negatives for them is Jeremy Cameron. He's been pretty poor. They've had injuries again. To Toby Green's been injured for a lot. Callum Ward has struggled to keep fit. Tim Taranto's been injured for an extended period of time. And their coaching is not particularly up to scratch, I don't think.
Canelio dropped.
Yeah, I think their list, I think, is more talented than anyone else's in the AFL, and they're struggling to make the top 8, and there's still a chance to not make it, which I think is really weird. And as you said, Cornelio got dropped. He's in some horrible form, and I believe the last time a captain got dropped was 1988, and it was Simon Goodwin. So
No, 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 no. Sorry, I'll correct you. I looked this up as well. 1998. It was John Worsfold. And you know who
1990.
dropped him?
No.
Mick Malthouse.
See, I wasn't sure because I heard that on Fox Footy that they were covering it, and I knew that it ended with an 8 and that it was a coach, so I just threw those two. But
That's all right.
okay,
That was a good
right,
guess. That was,
but you're right, 98 and John Worsfold, yeah.
and none other than Mick Malthouse who dropped him. Now, I've kind of written an essay for the negatives on the Giants. They might be the league's most efficient team inside 50, but they're almost the worst in the league at actually getting the ball inside
Which,
the arc.
which I find incredible because their midfield is stacked. Hopper,
Mm.
Taranto, Whitfield goes through. Kelly's a star.
Ward,
Ward when he plays. I find that incredible that they struggle to get it in there. But
yeah.
carry on.
They've begun to move the ball slower than previous years, which may be affecting their form, and they may have cost themselves a final spot. You said it, losing to the bottom side in Adelaide. Injuries haven't helped either with Zach Williams, Tim Taranto, Callan Ward, and Sam Taylor, all missing decent chunks of the season. And
And Phil
finally,
Davis as well is out for the rest of the season.
yeah, their contested possession ability has plummeted. So I really don't know whether or not they're haunted from that 89-point demolition in last year's grand final. Maybe a case of that, but my grade for them, it's pretty bad. It's a D.
Yeah,
Maybe
mine's a D as well.
maybe a
Uh,
bit harsh, but I just haven't enjoyed them this year, nor have they played well. Also, they may be imploding after dropping Cornelio, as we said.
yeah, I really don't know what to think about them. I think, as I said, I think they're the best list in the league, and I don't know why they would sign Leon Cameron to a 2-year contract or extend him. Because if they don't make finals, they're going to look like a fool. Like they've got the best list in the league and they don't make the top 8, and they re-sign their coach to a 2-year contract. I
Mm.
find that confusing. And just also quickly on the negatives, I think my dad in particular, he gets really angry when he's watching GWS because they always kick the ball backwards, and they never really look to go forward, and they're always trying to get it in Kelly and Whitfield's hands, which in theory makes sense because they're the best 2 kicks, but sometimes they go out of their way to get it to them, and it hurts them.
I kind of compare GWS to the Bulldogs because they have the talent, they have the midfield, but they're just not up to their expectations. The Bulldogs, we'll get to them next episode, but they're fighting for a top 8 spot as well. The
Yeah,
the fourth team on the list is none other than Hawthorn, and they had a great start to the season, beating Brisbane and Richmond, but since then they really haven't constructed an efficient offensive path to create and score.
yeah. That Hawthorn versus Richmond game, that was quite impressive for Hawthorn. I watched that, and that was a domination in every sense of the word. They beat them. They gave them a proper beatdown. But
Hmm.
my pros for Hawthorn is Tom Mitchell. As far as I know, I don't think he's missed a single game for the year, which is really good. Obviously, he didn't play a single game last year, but he's come back. He's been consistent, and he's been good, consistently good. Also, Will Day and Jack Scrimshaw, I think they found 2 gems there. I think they drafted Will Day and they got Jack Scrimshaw as a top 10 pick from uh, the Gold Coast Suns.
Hmm.
But both of them have been good this year, especially in the second half, and could be good for them.
Now, when we get to the negatives, I think it's a bit controversial because I have said something about Tom Mitchell, but that win was all the way back in round 3 against the Tigers, and since then they've struggled. They've
Mm.
lost 6 in a row, the Hawks, and really haven't shown much apart from Will Day, so a rising star contender. The negatives, though, the worst 3/4 months of Clarkson's career. He was under the microscope early, but I think they knew it'd be time to rebuild, so they trust him. Jonathan Patton's out for another year, sadly, and I think Tom Mitchell just hasn't had the greatest impact. He gets a lot of the ball, but he just doesn't do much with it. Honestly, he gets the hand passes out. I I may be a bit harsh. I just don't think he's got the biggest impact on that team.
I think a lot of people try and paint him with that rush. But this year, I don't really agree with it. I've just looked it up. This year he's 55th in the league for meters gained. He's got a total of 4,489, and that puts him above some elite company. Jack Steele, Dylan Shield, Rory Laird, James Sicily, are just some other names that I see below him. I think he's been a lot more damaging this year than he has been in previous years. I think he's added a bit to his game, which I find good. But my grade for them is a D. If I was to pick one team that I wouldn't want to be a supporter for, I think it'd be Hawthorn. As you said, I don't think they've got much at all. Will Day and Scrimshaw being the only really bright lights for them. And James Sicily as well as a star that's still pretty young.
Yeah.
O'Meara and Warple, but yeah, I don't really see much, and I think they're only going to get worse and worse. They got an aging list, and they're already struggling to get wins. So
good to see Sean Burgoyne re-signed for one last dance, though. And Sicily, I hate to see it. He's one of my favourite players. Honestly, I love hearing his name called Sicily, but he's out for a year at least, I believe. Maybe he'll come back next year, but not good for them.
I find the Burgoyne signing pretty interesting. I think it's great. He's been a star of our game and he's got a genuine chance to get to 400 games. But he's really old now, and I think Hawthorn are in desperate need of some young talent. So we'll see, though. Well done for Burgoyne to get his way into another job.
Might just take over a spot, do you think?
Yeah. My target for Hawthorn is young talent. As I said, they lack it. They lack it a lot, and if they can target they're obviously going to get a high draft pick this year, and if they can hit with that draft pick and get a star, that'd be perfect for their football club.
Yeah, my grade is a D, same as GWS. It's a painful next 5 years. I think they'll be bottom, maybe even wooden spooners one year. So a rough future coming up, but hopefully they just develop the young players. Will Day's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Melbourne, do you want to go first?
Sure. So Melbourne, they might play finals footy for the first time since the 2018 prelim loss. Petrarca's in all-Australian form. That midfield's really gelling together, I think, as of the last few weeks. Max Gawn remains one of the best dominant big men in the game, and Ed Langdon slotted him seamlessly on the wing. Their ball movement stepped up, and they're really adapting as a team well.
My praise for Melbourne is Oliver, Gawn, and especially Petrarca. They've got 3 genuine stars, like top 20 players in the league now, and Petrarca has really come on this year. A lot of people thought maybe he wouldn't, because he's starting to get up there. He's up to, I think, 25 now, and people thought if he's not going to break out now, then maybe he never will. But he has this year. He's been very, very good. He's kicked goals and won the ball like the bull that he is. But my negatives is they're so inconsistent. Their best football is better than anyone else, and their worst football is not good at all. Also, Tom McDonald is a negative for me. We've seen he kicked 50 goals, I think, 2 years ago in only about 18 games, maybe even less. But this year he's got dropped multiple times, and last year he wasn't very good, but this year has been horrible. If they can get him fit and firing, it'll be very good for Melbourne. Obviously, they traded away Jesse Hogan because they thought Tom McDonald could be that guy for them, but he hasn't been that. And if he can be that, it'll be very good for them.
Since we're in the same vicinity as Jesse Hogan, he was good yesterday. 4 goals. I'm happy to see him improve because I know he's a gun. He has the potential, and people were giving him a bit of criticism. So I'm just hoping he proves them wrong and continues to kick goals.
Yeah, definitely.
My negatives for the Ds, they're the struggles to hit inside 50 targets. They continue to haunt them, and their ability to finish out close games against Geelong, Brisbane, Fremantle. They've got one of the better midfields in the competition, but they haven't been able to continuously capitalise on the opportunities presented in the forward line. So Wiedemann, McDonald, Melksham, and Melksham's in shambles in the second half of the year. Just hasn't been his true self. So whether or not there needs to be a statement made by Goodwin to drop him or something else, they just need him to be in somewhat career form to have a shot at finals, because he can be a good forward, and he's kind of transitioned across to that role over the last few years, but he's shown the ability to kick goals.
I did just want to say quickly, their win last night against
GWS
was massive for them. that's definitely going to give them a better shot of making the finals. If they had a loss, that they had no chance, I don't think. But they now go above GWS and they're positioned 8th. If Carlton win by 100 today, though, we will go above them. So that's pretty good.
You could. You're playing Adelaide, although they've been good lately. I won't back them too much.
My grade for them is a C. I think purely because they're too inconsistent. If they do make finals, I might bump that up to around a B. But at the moment, it's still a question mark, and I don't know. But my target for them in the off season is young talent, so that they can continue to get better, and a key forward to replace Jesse Hogan, because Tom McDonald may not be that person. So either he's got to lift his game, or maybe they got to find that person elsewhere.
My grade is a C plus. They can still make finals, but they haven't been the same since the demolition against West Coast in the 2018 preliminary final. The final team for today's review, the second episode, is Port Adelaide. We're skipping North Melbourne, and you'll see why next episode. Port, they've got a plethora of positives. They've capitalised on the somewhat easy draw they had earlier in the year. However, wins against West Coast and GWS were extremely impressive. Charlie Dixon up forward is ridiculously overpowered, and guys like Trent McKenzie are holding their own in the back line. They're first in the league for clearances with the gritty midfield of Boak, Wines, Ebert, Rockcliffe, and their kick-to-handball ratio is biased for the kicks, which is what so many other teams, I think, need to improve, because they tend to handball too much and not make any progress and then turn it over mid-switch and concede. So do you think too many teams fluff around with the handball?
Yeah, I think they do sometimes, but Carlton, thankfully, isn't one of those teams. I think we've got the best kick to handball ratio in the league, or best as in like most kicks to least handballs. But we do it well. I think some other teams could maybe take a bit of a lesson, a page out of our book. But if they think that's what's going to help them win, then I guess they've got to continue doing it. My pros for Port is Travis Boak. He's a genuine Brownlow chance. Charlie Dixon, he's a genuine Coleman chance, and Darcy Byrne-Jones is one of the most improved players. He could be an All-Australian this year, but he's at least going to be in the squad. And also Peter Laddams, he's been a great find for Port Adelaide, and I think he's got something.
I was going to say that in the negatives, Peter Laddams and Dan Houston kind of affected the organisation after the suspension, but they seem to be back on track. Some people are calling them pretenders, and bad losses to Brisbane, Geelong and St Kilda won't help their case. Against Geelong, they were really just stagnant. They didn't show anything, no presentation up forward. So if they can change that around and beat the big teams, they're a chance. Yeah,
my negatives for Port Adelaide is, as you said, some people are calling them pretenders, and I think that they are pretenders, sort of. I think they beat one really good team. I think it was Brisbane. But they failed a lot of their tests, and I think they lack a little bit of an identity. They've dropped a lot of their players. Rockcliffe's been dropped. Ebert's been dropped. Westhoff has been dropped multiple times as he's getting up there. And I think Dershman might have been dropped once as well. So I think they're not 100% sure on what their best 22 is, but obviously it's working for them so far in the top of the ladder. So if they can win some finals, I'll give them their props. But at the moment,
Zave, I don't want to put you under the spotlight, but they did lose to Brisbane by 37 points.
I'm not sure. As I said, I'm not sure which one it is, but I think they beat one top 8 side by
They beat West Coast and GWS earlier on in the year.
Yeah, so the West Coast one would have been the one I was referring to. That's a good win, but Brisbane, bad loss. But yeah, I think they've struggled against a fair few top 8 teams, except for West Coast. My grade for Port Adelaide is an A. They've been, as I said, I think they're pretenders, so I'm not going to give them the A+, but they're top of the ladder nonetheless, and they've won a lot of games, so that's pretty good. But my target for them is youth, so they can grow with the likes of Rosie, Dersma, and Butters, and hit the draft, because they've drafted well over the last few years, and they've hit on their picks. So if they can hit once again, then that'll be great. And just pick up some players that can replace Westhoff, Boak, and Robbie Gray, as they're all getting up there in age and have been legends for their club.
Yeah, my grade as well, an A. I don't think many people expected them to be first, maybe a top 8 chance, but yeah, they've impressed us all. And I believe they won yesterday by 50 points against Essendon. So that does it for this episode. And the next one will have someone in particular who's visited the channel before. We'll release that probably next week. As of this episode, the conference finals in the NBA will be going on. The AFL finals are near, so a huge month of sport. The cycling's on, the Grand Prix's on, tennis is just about to finish. But yeah, a sport marathon going on, and it's entertaining us all. So I hope you enjoyed. We'll keep getting this content out, and until next time.